What's up, Barnhill family, and welcome back to your home for all things combat sports.
Yo.
Guys, the time has come to predict the UFC 311 main event. Islam Makhachev stepping back in there as the champion and a huge favorite in a rematch against Arman Tsarukyan. Nick, he got his hand raised the first time they fought. Arman was about 23 years old at the time. Right. The reality is both of these guys are completely different fighters now, and they're both a hell of a lot better than they were the first time that they fought. Really curious to see your thoughts on how this fight might play out and ultimately get your prediction.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this one. First pay-per-view of the year, and they're starting it with a bang.
Great card.
Yeah, Arman Tsarukyan took the first fight against Islam Makhachev on 3 weeks' notice, and he was not in the UFC. So it was one of those moments where you got to take your opportunity regardless of who's on the other side of the contract. And that's about as hard of a debut fight in the UFC as you can possibly get. And it's only gotten better with age, right? You fight Islam a few years ago. Now he's like the most dominant pound-for-pound #1 fighter in the world. But I think Arman Tsarukyan got to really get a feel for how good the best lightweight in the world is years ago in his very first fight in the UFC. And so he's a little bit less afraid of entering into a fight with Islam, unlike most of the people that have never faced Islam or had the luxury of fighting Khabib when he was around. So I think Arman does actually have an advantage at understanding what he's in for. But we all know that that's a very tall task to get your hand raised against anybody from Dagestan, especially a Khabib basically prototype.
Yeah.
So I really do think that Arman has to change a lot of the stuff that has gotten him to where he is to beat Islam. And I don't say that what he's doing is wrong, but I think what he has to do is the really minute, finite things to change his game. Like, I think his wrestling is really good, and I think he can take Islam to the ground, but it's not going to be with blast doubles. It's got to be with some variety striking coming in. It's got to really confuse and make Islam feel the threat of the actual takedown, of the actual heavy-handed strikes. If he can really mix the martial arts and make Islam deal with every sort of aspect of his body getting dealt damage and everything, his heightened senses being there where he doesn't know if he needs to drop his hands or lower his hands on what to defend. I think Arman really does need to have a lot of chaos in his game plan if he wants to get his hand raised in this fight. But I do think that Islam Makhachev comes in this fight, the pound-for-pound #1 fighter in the world. I mean, John Jones is the #1, but as far as active, and especially in the lightweight division, Islam's looked unstoppable. And I think the best thing you can do if you want to get your best prediction on this fight is not go back and watch their first fight, but go back and watch both of these guys' last 3 fights.
Right.
And you get to a real understanding, because some of it's similar opposition, but ranking-wise, it's all similar because they've been climbing towards the top of the division or been at the top of the division. So I think Islam Makhachev's the key and the secret to his success can be found in all of his prior fights, especially as the champion. What he's done is not only, buttoned up his submission game and his grappling game and the way the game in which it takes to get to the fight to that position. He's gotten that down better than anybody else and continues to evolve it. But the thing that's gotten better for Islam than over anything else is his striking. And it's because he doesn't come out of balance. He doesn't put himself at risk. He engages on his own terms. He puts really long, crisp boxing strikes, Soviet-style boxing. Look at Bivol. He'll throw the 1-2. He'll jump back with a really long 3. Islam's finding success with those types of strikes. And if he's able to do that on Arman, he's going to put a whole lot of pressure on Arman to get that fight off the feet and get it down to the ground as quick as possible. And I believe that is the biggest trap that could be set for this entire fight. I think Islam Makhachev wants Arman Tsarukyan on the ground because the narrative is out there that Arman Tsarukyan is a better grappler than Islam Makhachev. I think that Team Khabib and these guys have shown us time and time again, they want to beat you at what you think you're best at, especially if you think you're better than them at it. And I think Islam Makhachev wants to go out there. I think he wants to prove that he's not only the better MMA fighter, but he's also the better grappler and the better wrestler. I think he tries to implement a lot of groundwork in this game, a lot of control, and I think he's going to go for a submission. I think we see Islam Makhachev submit Arman Tsarukyan. I think it's going to be, he finds his way to the back, gets that body triangle, maybe has to do it a couple of times over a couple of rounds, But I'm going to go official prediction, second round, Islam Makhachev, rear naked choke over Arman Tsarukyan.
Very interesting. Good prediction.
Thank you.
And guys, before I give my prediction, just want to shout out the best Discord channel in all of MMA.
Let's go.
The Barnhill Brothers Discord. We're going to put a link to it in the description. We have a ton of diehard fans in there. We have great conversations. We have a verdict channel where we all, predict who's going to win fights and stuff like that. So join us in the Discord, join the conversation, and let's get into my prediction. Islam Makhachev, like I said, is a totally different fighter than he was the first time he fought Arman Tsarukyan.
Right.
I do believe Arman can have some success with chaos in this fight. Big shots, setting up his takedowns with overhands and uppercuts and things like that, trying to get Islam off balance, out of sorts, and potentially even hurt him. I think that's going to be what he goes in with. But I think Islam is very composed. He's going to try to keep the striking at range unless he sees an opportunity for the clinch. As you said, that Soviet-style boxing, he's very long, he's very good on his feet. And the thing that he's improved the most with, probably since he's come into the UFC, is his striking.
Yeah.
What was the main complaint about Islam when he first came into the UFC? That guy's great. He's dominant on the ground, but he's boring as hell to watch because he doesn't finish anybody. He just takes you down and ground and pounds you for 15 minutes and gets his hand raised. Well, now his submission game was addressed. He's submitting Charles Oliveira, who has more submissions than anybody in UFC history. That speaks to what you said of trying to beat people at their own game.
Right.
He knocked out Volk, who's one of the best strikers of the last probably 5 years.
Yep.
Speaks again to beating people at their own game. I think him and Arman have kind of a similar game in the sense that they both love takedowns. They just love to get there a different way. Arman's a very explosive blast double, single leg type of guy.
Right.
Whereas Islam likes to use his clinch for trips and off balances and stuff like that. Good body lock takedowns against the cage and then work his ground and pound game from there. To me, I see this similar to the way I saw the co-main event. I think Islam has more paths to victory. I think he's a better striker than Arman. I think he's going to be able to keep the fight at range. He's taller, he's longer, and he knows how to use his range well.
Right.
So I think he's going to have some success at range. He's going to be able to land shots on Arman, and Arman's going to have to risk it and come in if he's going to get those takedowns, which is where the counter wrestling for Islam will come into play, and those off balancings, which will allow him to get trips and body locks and get the fight to the ground. I'm seeing it just like you. I think Islam submits Arman. I think he's able to do some damage on the feet, which causes Arman to rush in a way that Islam can predict. He's going to get the takedowns he's looking for, maybe get some damage ground and pound. Islam's very careful and cautious on the ground. He's not in a hurry. He knows that 5 minutes is a long time on the ground with him. And then if he doesn't get the finish in that round, he's got another 5 minutes or however long he has after he gets the takedown. So I think we're going to see him operate out of the half guard, rain some elbows, rain some strikes when he sees the opportunity, because he's got to tire Arman out. Arman is, if you've seen pictures of him, the guy is
built.
First team all body, to quote Brendan Shaw. But I don't normally quote Brendan, but I think that that's very fitting. When you look at those pictures of Arman right now, guy is absolutely bodied up.
Oh, yeah.
He's going to be prepared. He's going to have good cardio. He's very strong. He's not going to be out of there in the first round. So I'm going to go a little bit longer than you. I think third round finish, because Islam's not going to be in a hurry to get the finish. He's going to get the fight to the ground. He's going to get some ground and pound. He's going to register some strikes. And then ultimately, he's going to pass that half guard position into a side mount and try to work that same head and arm triangle that he worked with Charles. Most likely, Arman's going to scramble out of that, which could expose the back. And I like Islam Makhachev rear naked choke in the third round.
I love it. Yeah, my pick is a little bit risky, being the second round submission for Islam. But what I think is going to happen is Arman Tsarukyan comes out, and he's always the guy that's in control of the fight, right? He's leading the dance most times. He's not going to have as many opportunities for that, especially early against Islam. And that's why I feel like he's going to get a little bit aggressive. He's going to get a little bit more brazen and try to force his game plan on Islam. Remember, this is a 25-minute fight, but as soon as everything starts to happen, then it only takes one big shot, one big moment, and then everything can change. So I think Arman Tsarukyan does need to get the ball rolling early if he wants to get his hand raised in this, but you also got to be very cautious, because Islam only gets more and more difficult to deal with as the fight goes on. And with the striking increases that he's been able to make in his game, he's able to just put damage on the body and kill the gas tank before you even get to the fourth and fifth rounds. And that's even if you're lucky enough to get there with Islam. So, yeah, this is a crazy fight, but Arman's in for a hard night of work.
I agree. Can't wait. Guys, thanks so much for watching this video. Let us know in the comments who you're taking, and let us know all your predictions for UFC 311. We'll see you in the Discord.
Peace.